Hi, this is Don Farber with VineyardSoft Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to this second training session on event design in the KnowledgeSync solution. The subject for this training session will be the selection of queries that are associated with an event. And so we'll continue our work in our ERP or accounting application, and the first event that we'll have a look at is one that identifies those invoices that are overdue for payment. And so we'll click right on our Queries tab. In order to associate one or more queries to an event, it's simply a matter of coming to this tab and clicking on the Add Query button. When you do so, you will get a list of all the pre-configured queries for the application in which you're currently working. In our case, all we need to do is scroll our list down until we find the particular query that we're interested in, and in this case, it is the one that identifies open invoices that are overdue for payment. And with that, we are done associating a query to this event. This particular query has no trigger parameters. What that means is that all the conditions that this query needs to identify are specified in the query itself. There are no additional parameters that need to be specified on the event level. So we'll save this event, and now we'll proceed by looking at a second event. This one actually has trigger parameters that you need to specify on the event level. And so we're going to open up an event that identifies those clients who are running out of credit. Once again, we're going to click on the Queries tab and again click on the Add Query button. Scrolling our list down a little ways, we'll find the query that we're interested in. In this case, the query that adds a customer's current balance with their balance forward and checks to see if that total is greater than a certain percentage of that client's credit limit. So we'll click on Select, and what we see now down at the lower part of our Queries tab is a trigger parameter. This parameter directly relates to the X that you see in the description of this query. And so if we want this event to check for a client who's used up 70% of their credit limit, 80% of their credit limit, or in our case, 90% of their credit limit, we can specify that trigger parameter here. And this gives you an idea of how you can use this same query in multiple events and simply specify a different trigger parameter on the event level. It's also worth noting that these parameters can also refer to date values such as today, tomorrow, yesterday, last Monday, or last Friday. And so you can actually click in that answer field, which will result in the following window, and you can also pick and choose from any of the date variables that appear from this list. However, 90 is all that we need for this event's parameters, looking for a client who's used up at least 90% of their credit limit, and once again, we can click on Save and Close. Now, let's take a look at an even more sophisticated event. This event is going to identify those clients who have placed no orders within the last 60 days. And the reason why this event is even more sophisticated than the last one is that this event requires two queries. The first query, which simply generates a list of customers, and then a second query that checks to see if any of those customers have not placed any orders within the last 60 days. So once again, we'll begin by clicking on the Add Query button, and we'll choose our first query, which identifies all of our client accounts. Now we need to look for our second query, which we refer to as our Link To query. So we'll click on Add Query again, scroll our list down until we get to those queries that begin with the words Link To. And here we find the query that we're looking for, Link To customers with no sales orders in the last 60 days. And so we'll select that, and now we've configured an event that uses two queries. A single event can utilize up to 99 queries, and please refer to the training session on linked query design for more details on associating queries with each other. For right now, we're going to click on Save and Close to save this event as well. And we're going to finish up our discussion about linking queries to events by looking at one additional event. In this case, it's going to be an event that identifies conditions within our operating system. And so we're going to look at the event that identifies logon failures. Now, the reason why I want to show you this particular event is that this event, in fact, does not use a query, but rather uses a script, a visual basic script, in order to identify the particular conditions you want it to look for. It's important that KnowledgeSync has the ability to identify underlying business conditions either through the use of queries, such as the preceding 3 events we've looked at, or it can identify underlying business conditions through the use of a script. A single KnowledgeSync event cannot use both a query and a script. It's one or the other. You'll notice that there's a button called Select Scripts where I am shown a list of those scripts that can be utilized by queries for identifying underlying business conditions. And as you can see from this list, the most common use of scripts and utilizing scripts instead of queries is to identify conditions within the operating system, as a normal query cannot be used to monitor the operating system. So in this case, this shows you the final option that you have from the Queries tab to use a script instead of a query. And with that, we can save and close this event as well and wrap up this training session on event designing and how to associate one or more queries to an event in the KnowledgeSync solution. And so with that, I'll thank you very much for your time today, and I look forward to speaking with you in a future KnowledgeSync training session. Thanks very much.